Jeff's got a fun new show, talking Shakespeare, writing, and a whole lot more, called Foolish Wits. He's got the bi-weekly Shattered Worlds Twitch stream, and, of course, the War for the Tower. Learn more at awesomepod.squarespace.com.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
Co-host Switcheroo, the rereading Return to Westeros, HBO Spoiler Edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV, bringing you the greatest hits from 1998. Call in with your requests now. Use a raven. In these chapters, which are 36 and 37, Tyrion and Theon, Tyrion's sister is up to no good, which he can tell because she's being nice to him, which is a real indictment. Theon is over here scheming, and he's not good at it. He's not hiding anything from anybody. He thinks he's being sly. Everybody knows. Theon, you're not... Sweetie. Fine, sure. Welcome to Some Spoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I am Rashawn, and I have to admit that every week I think you're going to say the greatest hits from 1996, and when you say 98, I die a little inside.
I know, because it doesn't rhyme, but this book is from 98, so I'm trying to be, like... what can you do? The price I pay for my craft.
Yeah, we have to just work within the bounds, right? Oh, well.
If you guys hear a bunch of thunder and or rain, it is storming like a motherfucker over here, and it's been doing it all day. I keep waiting for it to, tone it down, and it's going full clip. It's doing a marathon, not a sprint. But in the seasons, because, whenever it's stormy and gloomy out, it makes you feel extra cozy. And in the fall, you're really, wanting that coziness an extra amount. So, you know what I did? I made a batch of mulled wine in the spirit of Lord Mormont. I did not put any lemons in it.
Is it chunky?
You would be very pleased.
Is it a chunky?
It is not
chunky wine.
Ooh, I totally forgot that was a thing. Wow, that's so gross.
Nice and chewy.
I forgot I called it oatmeal. Well, no, it is not like that, but it is very delicious, and I can completely understand finishing that grueling trek and being like, yeah, I want some of that immediately, please.
Every once in a while, I am just completely knocked over by how completely different we are. Because the opening of that, talking about the weather and fall, and then you're like, it's cozy, and I'm just like, oh, that's not how I would have finished that sentence.
How would you have finished that
sentence? It's just the time of year that makes you want to kill yourself, It's, the weather's changing, it's getting darker all early.
What's interesting is that Texas has sort of accentuated something that's always been a little bit true for me, but because of how far south we are, it's just much more extreme. For me, I've always been better in a better place in the fall and winter than I am in the spring and summer. And especially in Texas, I don't have the seasonal affective disorder the same way that I had up north because it's so beautiful here in the winter. And the spring comes so much earlier that I'm outside a lot more. So I'm getting a ton more sun. The summer here is so grueling and brutal. I don't want to go outside. So I'm like hibernating from the heat in my air conditioning in a much more significant way than I ever have to worry about with the winter here.
Gotcha. Huh.
The winter is my is when I start, like, I always am like, oh, let me restart like a fitness program. In the summer, I'm just like, I'm not going outside. I'm not doing anything like that. Thanks, but I pass. And it's taken me a while to realize that that's the pattern, because I'm still not really used to it. But yeah. But anyway, this is not about mulled wine or seasonal affective disorder.
At least not these 2 chapters. Who knows what next week will bring.
So, what were your feelings on these 2? Give me your overall impressions.
One thing that struck me really the most, and you talked about it in the intro kind of jokingly, was Cersei being so transparent.
Yeah.
But I don't think that she knows how transparent she is.
Yeah.
So that just made me laugh. I was like, oh, this bitch thinks she's fooling somebody. She's not fooling nobody.
Have you seen Thelma and Louise?
Not in ages. But yeah.
There is a part where they need her husband, who is like at home. They're waiting for her call, and they need him to act as normal as possible so that she doesn't realize they're tracing the call. And she calls him, and he picks up and says, "Thelma, hello!" And she just hangs up immediately, and she turns to Louise and says, "He knows." That he's such an asshole that immediately it's just a giveaway. And yeah, very similar energy here with Cersei. She's just... Both her and Theon, actually, now that I stop and think about it, they really feel like they're fooling people. And it's like, everybody knows what kind of chip you've got on your shoulder.
Yeah. It seems like every week, the 2 chapters that we read, there's like a recurring sort of theme across the 2 chapters, even if they're not like overtly connected.
That's true. I hadn't really thought about it, but you're right.
I think these 2 chapters both have that, like what you're talking about now, where we have our characters really feeling like they are, they're like Mr. Burns level evil plan hatching. Like, they're tinting their fingers and everything, but everybody else is just like, we can see you tinting your fingers, mastermind. Like,
honestly, Mr. Burns is also not great at his like little masterminds either. So they're kind of the equivalent of Mr. Burns in that he has big plans and he's very evil, but he's just not the brains of the operation. That's never been his role.
So yeah, this also, it's so funny as I'm reading the bits and pieces that I remember from the show, like little things that I had like literally not thought about in 5 or 6 years, pop into my head, often at the wrong time, usually after we have recorded.
Oops. I know that feels.
So I was thinking as I was reading this the Tyrion chapter, which is them talking about the news of Renly being murdered has started to travel through the kingdoms. This different stories are so wild too. Like, of course, there's going to be like all these, wild rumors and just like one person claims it was this and someone else thinks it's that. I was trying to remember on the show, and on the show, when this happens, Littlefinger is there already.
Is he?
I think so.
I think I remember just feeling like, wow, Littlefinger really gets around in this version.
Because
so that would not surprise me.
There was like he was there for some reason. I feel like he was there. But here but in the book, obviously he's not there. But he is who is getting sent to go meet with them, the Tyrells, and try to like bring them over to the Lannister side. And
maybe that's why he was there.
I think on the show they had him there when it happened to skip to like get to this.
Yeah,
yeah. Two birds and all that jazz. But so this is everybody in the small council meeting dealing with the fallout of Renly being murdered. And my God, this Cersei wants to know who did it, which is a valid question, and Varys can't answer it, and she is like, "What do we even pay you for?"
She's literally like, "If you don't get me some answers, we may just cut your head off." And I'm like, "God, you suck so much. You are just so bad at your job." Later on, somebody's like, I think it's Tyrion talking about like a particular person they're trying to get on their side, and he's like, "Well, that won't make him love us anymore." And she's like, "I don't want his love. I want his swords." And I'm like, "Bitch, you know what he meant. Stop it. You're just fucking like splitting hairs here and trying to sound tough." She's absolutely somebody who would post that. I sent you a Facebook post earlier today about like every time you level up, expect a new level of devil or something. Like just somebody who's always like, I'm being oppressed by my own success.
A picture of Tupac to go along with those really vapid words.
Genuinely, what in the fuck? Like, is that a lyric? It's not a lyric, is it?
I don't think so. I should hope not. It might be, girl. I don't give me the lying, but.
But anyway, so yeah, that's how I feel about Cersei sometimes, is that she's just... she thinks there's a lot of herself.
She tells Varys that, basically you're wasting our time with all these rumors. And he's like, you pay me for these rumors, though. Like, that's literally my job.
That's the whole thing.
So, there's a lot to discuss, and it is... from what I don't know who's all here, but what it sounds like, it's Littlefinger's there, Tyrion's there, Cersei's there, and Varys is there. Now, there should be more people on the council, right?
Well, Pycelle got
that's
thrown
right.
in the cells,
that's why
he got released, but he's not on the small council anymore.
That's what Baelish makes him. Who was it that makes the joke about the fucking council won't have any more people on it if you keep doing it? Oh, it's Varys again.
Was that Varys?
Yeah, he says.
Oh, good for him.
He says, he's telling Cersei, he says, you and your noble brother will leave his grace with no counsel at all if you continue.
Indeed. I love it.
So they're trying to figure out what the best next step is. And they're trying to, who went over to Stannis. Turns out, a fair amount of people.
Yeah.
Which, I guess.
They were openly defying the crown, so I can see how you would just be like, well, the crown's not going to want us, but like they are underestimating how desperate the crown is.
They're like, well, we gotta do something, and Stannis is already here, so it makes it really easy for us. Yeah.
I also assume that they believe what do you call it? When people who are brother and sister sleep together? Incest. Christ almighty. I feel like my brain has been put into like a puddle of mud, and it's trying to work, like the circuits are attempting to continue firing, but there's just all this like layer of sludge in the way, keeping it from functioning. My words are not bad speak. No bueno. Anyway, so I feel like those people probably believe the incest rumors, and that is also probably a major reason.
Right. There's talk that even though a lot of people did go over to Stannis, Loras did not, Tarly didn't, Rowan did not, and Loras is so incensed about what happened that he's not really in the mood to be bending the knee to Stannis at all. And there's this other guy who has not gone with Stannis because he doesn't believe that Renly is dead and won't stand down until somebody shows him the body. Mm-hmm. And I respect that. I feel like that's somebody that listens to a lot of podcasts. No.
Somebody who watches a lot of network television and it's just like, no body? That character's returning, so you're not going to fool me. I've seen The Walking Dead.
So they're at the table, and Tyrion thinks that the best move, because he's like, wouldn't it be great if we could get them over on our side, especially Sir Loras, because he brings, all the weight and the gold and the power and everything else of Highgarden with him. If we could just bring him over.
And food.
That too. And there's kind of just like, but why? Why would he do that? What do we possibly have to offer them? There's a funny little
that's the question.
Little joke about chickens here.
Oh my god! Yeah. The joke, for those wondering, is about how it'll be easier to buy a lord than to buy a chicken, because I think it's Varys, is like, do you think that you can just bribe and buy lords like a chicken in the market? And Littlefinger's like, have you tried buying a chicken recently? It's not. They don't have them. We're eating peasants. You're going to want to adjust your analogy.
Yeah,
definitely. Not making the point you think you're making.
And Tyrion's like, no, what we should do here is arrange a marriage. And Cersei was really against this. And
she doesn't want any of her kids getting married.
Right. Well, she tries to act like, well, we've already promised, that Sansa is going to marry Joffrey, and we can't go back on our word. Okay, do you know who you are?
Right?
Have you met you and your family?
Y'all cut off her dad's head when you had promised that wasn't happening. You do shit all the time. Shut up. Yeah,
but it's so crazy to me because she says it like, I can't believe y'all didn't remember this. This takes Tyrion's idea completely off the table. Which okay,
it's a real bless your heart moment.
And they kind of end up saying, first of all, nobody's married yet. We can change our minds. Marriage contracts can be broken, especially when the family that you brokered to deal with are practically all, dead now because you murdered them. And also,
and considered traitors.
And that part.
Yeah.
So the fact that, she is from a family of traitors, like, we're not going to lose face by backing out of this deal. And then we take a turn that I was not expecting, and I really don't remember from the show, is that because somebody is like, Marjorie is really pretty too. And looks like she'd be good in a sack. And Cersei is like, my son is too young to care about such things. And this takes us back to the episode of him having her Sansa, having her dress stripped down from the top up, or top down, rather. And Cersei is just like, well, he was very angry.
Right. And Tyrion's like, yeah, he was really angry at a serving boy who spilled his wine, and yet he didn't have him stripped in front of half the court. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's not how that went.
And Tyrion thinks to himself, basically, no, he wanted to see her. Mm-hmm. He wanted to undress her in front of her. On top of just the humiliation of everything else, there was also this added thing of wanting to see her with no top on. Mm-hmm. Which I will admit to you guys, that particular angle did not occur to me. And I am wondering if it's because my experience with the show and Jack Gleason, he was so terrible.
So wait, you're saying that the sexual angle didn't occur to you?
Yeah, not really.
When he did that, we talked about it.
Did we really?
Yeah, I think I said something about how, like, it's, his sadism is sort of turning a corner here. But maybe it just didn't, like, hit for
maybe
you.
It didn't. I don't remember. Yeah. I know we discussed this, how sadistic he is, but I don't think maybe I didn't make the connection about how it was turning, like, sexual, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, me and Cersei, I guess, are on the same page with that. Because, it just I hadn't really thought about it in that way. I'm so used to thinking of him as just being cruel,
like a child,
not just as a child. Partly though, because he is still very young in my mind, but also that the cruelty is what is, exciting to him and titillating and all that, and less about just seeing her with, seeing her tits out, And then we get a mention that Tyrion is thinking about taking him to the brothel.
Yeah. He's like, maybe I should just, like, get some of that out of his system. And he won't be all pent up and, like, volatile.
Mm-hmm. A taste of honey might sweeten a boy. I don't particularly care for that.
Right.
But, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things that I understand Tyrion's thinking on this, but considering what Joff did to Sansa, I'm, like, not feeling like that's actually a great plan. However,
I'm remembering they had that girl that doesn't exist in the books, and they created for the show.
Roz.
Yeah. There was something in the show with her and him. He ends up killing her with that crossbow, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, I don't remember how she got into his bedroom, but it must have been sort of the same sort of thing. Maybe somebody thought that, like, if, they just snuck a pretty girl in his room, he would, get all that shit out of his system. I can't remember how exactly she ended up there, but...
Well, I can't tell you. Some of it isn't, like, even in the book, so it's not even a, like, book spoiler, but it might spoil you if I'm like, well, in the show, it's like this, because it'll hint you that that's not how it happens in the book, and I don't want you to know the things that don't happen in the book.
Okay.
So, mind your own business.
So, they're thinking, Tyrion's like, we should probably try to get him over to the brothel, but we need to do it when the Hound's not around. And, that becomes Varys' next little project.
Oh, man, I don't forget, too, that when they're talking about the benefits of, like, moving from Sansa to Marjorie, Littlefinger says, the Stark girl brings nothing but her body, sweet as that may be. I'm just like,
yeah, yep.
He just has to be a creep.
Yeah, he is also the one that calls Marjorie bettable.
Oh, is he?
Marjorie is said to be lovely and bettable besides.
I think that's supposed to mean that she's had her period.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
I think... What?
Well, the thing is that she's already been married to somebody, so I feel like that's not something you need to announce.
Well, I think he's just trying to say, like, that's something that could be consummated immediately versus us just sitting here with the Stark girl I don't think he's trying to be like, you guys wouldn't have known this, but she can fuck now. I think he's just trying to point out the advantage of her being available immediately versus Sansa, who they all are waiting on because she hasn't had her period yet.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
That it's just like, that's another tick in the pro column. That kind of thing. They're talking about her like she's a horse. I'm looking at the notes from Austin Arminio. True. Austin Arminio, thank you again for sending notes. And he points out something. He says, Littlefinger is sent to convince Loras and the Tyrells to side with the throne. This happens in the show, but in a different order. Littlefinger is sent prior to Renly's death and has a few scenes talking with Kat and Marjorie. So, yeah. You were correct on that.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for the confirmation there, Austin. Appreciate you. And, yeah, this whole thing with Cersei being super nice to Tyrion at the end. Do you have any theories about what it is that she might be up to?
I don't. Yeah, no. I have no idea what she's thinking.
And it should be mentioned, too, that each of them tries to send the other to deal with the Tyrells.
Yeah, this is what happens next. Once they figure out that this is going to be the way to go, it becomes a matter of, well, who is going to make this trip? Tyrion says it should be Cersei. Cersei says it should be Tyrion. And then, as Cersei and Tyrion are playing back and forth, Littlefinger is like, I'll do it. And Tyrion is like, fuck. That is not how I wanted that to play out. But he's kind of back.
Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, he's backed into a corner. He can't be like, yeah, no. You can't go. Which is just a moment of Littlefinger getting to be like he is not sitting on the council by accident. He's not gotten where he is by accident. He's such an opportunist, and he pounces whenever he sees an opening. And Tyrion is, kind of like dueling with Cersei and takes his eyes off of Littlefinger for just a fucking second. And there he is.
Yeah, and the thing that's sort of infuriating Tyrion is that he doesn't really know what Littlefinger is after. He's like, I think that, a lot of us probably would feel that way. If we had a sense of how somebody's trying to screw us over, it at least gives you a game plan, You feel a little bit in control because you can do something. But he's trying to get in there, and Tyrion genuinely is like, what? What could he get out of this, though? I don't get it.
If, I know in the show, eventually, I forget what season, at some point, Littlefinger, ends up marrying Lysa. But
okay.
But and Sansa ends up marrying Tyrion, and I can't remember when that happens either. But I don't know. Now that Sansa is not marrying Joffrey, and would Littlefinger want to marry her?
Sansa?
Yeah, I feel like he would marry her if he could, right?
Oh, 100%, right? I think, yeah.
Is that the kind of thing he would ask for? When,
I don't think he would, because he just knows that it's he's just not highborn enough to warrant that. He's in no position, really.
Even in her sort of very vulnerable state, with not really
I think they see her as a bargaining chip still. Even if they don't have her marry into their own family, they have her to offer. And I don't think they'd want to just squander that on him.
Squander.
You know what I mean?
So, so he says he's going to go. And then it becomes a matter of what he's going to need in order to take this trip. I love the conversation that they're having too, with trying to decide who should be the person to go. And there's a quick bit where Tyrion is like, well, one of us has to go. And he's like, well, I can't send, like, Bronn or Shagga. And I was like, those are not your only two choices.
Right? Yeah. I think that it's supposed to be, like, the people that we trust the most. But, like, who has Cersei got? She had Pycelle. He's been taken out of play. There's,
there was Lancel, who's now working for Tyrion.
Yeah. And, like, I don't think even if his loyalty was not in question, that Cersei would consider sending him.
And as when Tyrion says that, and Cersei is like, well, the hand speaks with the king's voice. We should if we send you, it'll be almost as good as sending Joffrey himself. And they just go back and forth. And I really enjoyed it until finally Littlefinger pipes up and is like, you know what? I'll go. So, yeah, he's going to go, but he needs some things.
I love that there's like a couple of moments here where he's just, also I'm going to want to have all of this stuff in writing. And I know that this isn't on his behalf. It's like more to lend credence to the offer. But there's something about it that makes me think about him being promised Harrenhal and getting all excited over it, and then it just being nothing. And that he's now just like, oh yeah, I'm not going to like play your games anymore. If you make me or anyone else an offer, I'm going to have you sign that shit. Which, fair enough.
Yeah.
Burn me once.
Yeah, he's going to need it in writing. He's going to need 300 men. He's going to need a bunch of knights. He's going to need squires. Because if he shows up looking raggedy, then why would the Tyrells take him seriously? And you know what? That's a fair enough point.
Yep.
So, remind me, he says, I'll include horror and slobber in my party. And those are clearly very mean nicknames, right?
Right, yes.
Who was he talking about?
They're the two sons of... fuck. Everybody's going to be yelling at me about this.
Is it Redwyn?
Let me just...
Because they start talking about a Redwyn who knew full well...
I think it's red wine.
Who knew full well his whelps would suffer for it.
What did he do, though? I can't remember what he did. Let's see. Sir Haber Redwine, marked as Sir Slobber, is a knight from House Redwine. He is the son of Paxter Redwine, Lord of the Arbor. All right, let's click on Paxter Redwine. Twice the nephew of the Queen of Thorns. Hey. I'm trying to find, like, what exactly happens. Okay. They're held hostage by Cersei Lannister. Lord Paxter is the only Tyrell bannerman who does not declare for Renly for fear of his sons' lives. Okay.
Okay.
So they're just holding these kids as hostage to keep him from siding with Renly, and that's all that is. Okay. Got it. Got it.
All right, so that's why she calls him a traitor. Not because he actually did anything, but because he only didn't declare for Renly because they have his kids. So He's a traitor in heart, basically, is what she's saying.
Right.
So,
and if I got that wrong, everybody, calm down and let us know. But it'll be all right. Just saying.
So, Tyrion agrees to put all of this in writing so that, Tyrells don't have any doubt about Littlefinger's authority, and also, as you said, he is not going to get played again.
Yeah.
And they're going to go...
And also, I think he says that he wants Joffrey to sign it.
Yeah, they're going to go wake Joffrey up in the middle of the night because they want to get Littlefinger on the road right away. And... then it ends with her just being... she fucking... How comes your chain, brother? She asked him.
I don't know if she knows what it's for at this point. You don't either, do you?
I don't know. I don't.
Okay. But she knows about it. And Yeah, this is when she says, I know that we don't always agree on policy, but it seems I was wrong about you. You must forgive me if I've spoken harshly. And he says, must I? And then, you've said nothing that requires forgiveness. Today, you mean? They both laughed, and Cersei leaned over and planted a quick, soft kiss on his brow. Cersei, if it hadn't been for that, maybe we would have believed you. But you had to just do something really wild there. Like, later on, Tyrion is saying that he literally can't remember the last time she ever kissed him. The one time that he can recall, it was on a dare, which is so hurtful.
Yeah, he says she's hatching something and tells Bronn to find out what it is. I like that Tyrion found this all very unsettling.
Yes, definitely. He's just like, all right, you know what? I don't like it. And he tells Bronn, basically, get on the case.
Yeah.
I need to find out what's going on here.
So, for whatever I'm trying to think, like, what does she have, who and what does she have access to and power over that she could put into motion based on what happened in this chapter. And, she's agreed to, the marriage proposition with Marjorie. But I guess she could think that she could pull something else off before it happens. But what? Also now if we're saying that there can't be Sansa because she has she's not ready to be wed yet. I don't know what else she could be thinking of doing. Yeah, I don't know. What else could she be? Let's see, who am I forgetting? Anybody?
There's too many.
It
like
is. I don't
you're
know.
certainly forgetting somebody, but that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Because guess what?
So yeah, I don't know what she's up to.
I have mentioned, and if anybody has a particular one that you'd like to suggest, I'm interested to hear. We've talked about getting in the Discord. We talked about it, I should say, not on the show, but in the Discord we were discussing getting Rashawn a map of Westeros so that she can track where everybody is and what's going on, which would be pretty fun. There's a map in the book, but it's different when it's larger and everything, there's more names that are filled in when you have more room and everything. And if anybody, because I know there's a lot of them out there, on Etsy, people do them by hand and whatnot. But if y'all have a particular one that you've seen that you were like, this is a really good one, let me know. Just curious about it. I don't really have a price in mind because I don't know anything about that stuff, how much any of it costs. But I'll field all suggestions for the moment. For the nonce, as they say. Okay, so Theon.
Real quick too, before we get to Theon. Okay. Not only is Cersei acting strangely in this moment, but Tyrion says she's been behaving queerly of late. So it's not just this moment. So whatever plan she's hatching does not necessarily have to be in direct response to what happened at this particular council meeting. So I just wanted to mention that. It doesn't bring me any closer to thinking about what she might be doing. But. Right.
Yeah, it's not exactly helpful in that. But it does rule one major thing out, so that's something. All right, so Theon.
Excuse me.
Things start off, unsurprisingly, with violence. Benfred Tallheart, who was one of Robb's men, they run into him. And Theon is prepared to, go up against the people that they see from afar. But when they get up close, he's like, oh, no. And this just all sort of hits different for him because of this man's presence here. And there's a real feeling throughout this chapter that's so, there's something so pathetic about it when you know what happens to Theon. Of him wondering why this doesn't have the same satisfaction to him that the Whispering Wood victory had. And he just genuinely seems like, I don't get it. And I'm like, babe, because you're being a fucking bastard right now. Like, you have a conscience, even though you don't think you do.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't think he does.
And it's being bothered.
He doesn't seem to understand that he's not as terrible or as much of a sociopath as he wants everybody to think he is. He's also clearly still plagued with like a lot of feelings of inadequacy.
Definitely.
There's a lot of, Stark was never good to me either, and my father thinks that I'm a coward, and, just a lot of inner conflict and a real fucking identity crisis.
Yeah.
Which is sad, even though I, continue to be annoyed by Theon.
100%, yeah.
He doesn't know who he is. Doesn't know what kind of man he's supposed to be. Feels very much like he's just trying on different, values.
Masks.
Different masks.
Expectations. Yeah.
He is traveling with his uncle. He is not here for it.
No.
The first thing this opens up with is they're going to kill this guy, this poor Benfred. And his uncle is like, all right, you need to spit on you. You need to kill him, like, right now. And Deanna's like, I have some questions,
I love that.
And Benfred is like, fuck you, fuck your questions, fuck your uncle, fuck your whole family.
Oh, I love that.
And then there is a moment where his uncle is like, no, we have to kill him, the old way. And Theon is like, oh my fucking God.
There is something about Theon's, like, contempt for the drowned god and those traditions that I find so funny. Because he has to pretend, but he's not really, like, his heart isn't in the pretending either. He doesn't try that hard.
Yeah, it's not even, like, top-notch pretending. It's like me pretending that, like, I enjoy my job when I'm there. It's, it's very, very half-hearted.
Oh, God.
And when Theon is like, fine, take him and drown him, his uncle's like, well, you need to be here as well. And Theon can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't he say, like, essentially that Theon needs to be the one to do it?
He says, you have to come as well. You command here. The offering should come from you, is what his uncle says.
Okay, so that's kind of what I interpreted as him being like, you have to be the one to sacrifice him. I don't think that's necessarily what he meant, but that's how I read it. But either way, Theon has no fucking interest.
Yeah, not even a little bit. And he tells his uncle, you get to be the god guy. You're going to leave the battles to me. And that's just how this is going to go. And his uncle goes. Like, he doesn't, like, he's not happy about it. He's, like, really disappointed in Theon. And it's got a lot of, you wait till your father hears about this energy to the way he walks off. But just kind of like, yeah, you're no real, son of the Iron Irons. This is, like, another example that you're not really one of us. And,
yeah.
We're just, this is why we can't. It's just like it was a lot. He just says it's a reproachful look, but, I feel like it was a very heavy kind of, like, there's a lot of baggage in that moment.
Yeah, and there's a moment where he tries to sort of rationalize why killing him that way isn't so bad.
Oh, my God. Perhaps it's a kindness. How, sir?
He's insinuating, essentially, that if we tried to just, like, decapitate him, nobody that we have here to do that is good at it, and he has a really thick neck.
Heavy with muscle
just like,
and
what
fat.
Weird. But
not only that, when he's remembering about this guy's thick neck and how drowning is preferable than trying to hack his head off, he remembers that he used to tease this man about the neck just to see how angry he could get.
Yep.
And how that was only 3 years ago.
I could not believe that when he said like 3 years ago, and I was like, what? I'm thinking like when he was, 7 years old or something, but Jesus.
Yep. Yeah. So he is, they've been out, raiding or reaving and all this stuff, or along the shore, which is what, the job his father gave him. Theon thought it was beneath him when the job was given to him, and he still feels that way. And on top of it, he's also starting to feel like we're doing all this work and no one's even going to give me credit for it.
Yeah. It's wild to me too that, like, look, I'm not trying to say toughen up and kill the guy with this dude, because I understand and sort of like the fact that Theon can't stomach being there for this man's execution. There's a part of me that's like, you know what? Look, you've got some empathy. I kind of appreciate that. However, the way that the damn pair presents it is basically like, well, you're in command, and this is part of that. He desperately wants the command. He wants to be taken seriously, but then he's given, like, a responsibility and immediately tries to sidestep it. So he just wants to be able to do everything the way he feels like. And that's just not how it works, kiddo.
Yeah.
Like, maybe once if your dad dies and you get to take his place like you're hoping, and there's nobody else to stop you, then sure, do whatever. But at the moment, there are expectations of you and your behavior, and you've been given a very clear guideline on what everybody is thinking you should do here, and you just refuse. That's not a good look. It's just, such an easy thing that he could choose to do that he doesn't.
It feels to me like Theon resents having to prove, air quotes, anything to anyone, because all of this should just be his on GP.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, I agree.
So even these things that come along with the title, with the command, these responsibilities that come along with those things, instead of seeing them as like responsibilities that come with that position, he acts as if people are asking too much of him that they wouldn't ask of someone else.
Yeah. And with this, it's like they wouldn't have to ask because Asha would do it. Like, he sees it as him having to prove himself, but it would be to somebody else just them doing their duty.
Right.
But he has such a chip on his shoulder that I feel like in a lot of ways, and that's not to say that they don't want him to prove himself to them, because they don't trust him. So that is the actual energy that's coming off of them, and I get that. But he just doesn't know how to set that aside and handle this the way that he would in the best of circumstances, and try and do what he can with what he's got.
Right. He's just not really, well, not at all. He hasn't been prepared in any way to be a leader of any kind.
No,
right?
Not at all.
Not even like, and I guess I don't know that much about it, but I imagine if you are someone's ward, especially if you're being kept to cudgel someone else into behaving properly, then you're not, like, you're raising the kid and you're going to feed them and you're clothing them and, like, they're going to learn how to fight and shit, but they're not going to get the lessons on how to be a good leader, how to instill confidence in the people that you're asking to follow you. He wasn't getting the lessons that Rob was getting from Ned,
True.
So,
although it's clear that Ned did rub off on him, and his morality is like embedded a little bit more than Theon wants it to be, because he thinks about what Ned would think of all of this later and is really mad about it.
Yeah. I mean, like that, you pick up, that kind of stuff. You mean just from being around, like you're gonna pick up somebody's values as your own, but then like he makes a choice on whether or not these are going to be his values and tries to like throw them all away. This whole everybody, his men are all like robbing the corpses of the people they just fought, and Theon is watching it. They're cutting off fingers to get to rings. And he says to himself, oh, my father would approve, they're paying the iron price. And then thinks to himself, Ned would hate this. And
he considers doing it himself, and he doesn't have the stomach to go cutting people's fingers off.
Yeah, he says the thing about his father would approve. Then he says he thinks to himself how Ned would have hated all this. And then thinks to himself, well, Ned's dead and he's rotting. He doesn't mean shit to me. It's like it all happens like really quickly.
It's such a shame because there are flickers of a decent person in there. He's a shit. But like all of his shittiness feels like such posturing that there's a sense of it being very sort of unstable. Like it's so much pretense. That it would be possible for him to really turn around and be a way better person.
I wonder what he would have turned out to be like if he had gone with Robb and he was out as like in like a high position with Robb, because he had such an ego. It would have to be like something that was important, I
mean, he was in a pretty high position in terms of just being like a close friend and being on the front lines.
So like, I wonder what he would be like as a person if he had gone that way instead of being sent back, to Pike to deal with his father and try to enlist them in their cause and all that jazz. Theon is, to me, he's the kind of person that needs to have a stronger, more stable, less shitty person always around. Because without that influence, he just gets lost very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wonder what would have satisfied him, because clearly by the time he gets back to Pike, he has been fantasizing about his homecoming and taking over for his dad and all of what he imagines this is going to be like. And it would have to be something pretty huge to keep him satisfied if it weren't this, And I really wonder what Robb could even have offered him.
Yeah, that's why I was like saying, like, had to be a high position because of like his ego and his sense of entitlement. Theon has a really strong sense of what is owed him, what he should have by, by whatever metrics he's counting on whatever given day. But he doesn't seem to, like, I feel like someone like him is never satisfied.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Yeah. Like, what could Robb offer him? Because I just feel like the principle of going home and getting back his own home, it would mean too much. I don't think there's anything that Robb could give him that isn't Pike that he would be feeling like confident about. I think he's got such a mental image of like himself making his father proud as well, and his father respecting him, and like there is no way that he's getting that if he accepts like a gift essentially from Robb. It would just he would really need, like, his whole personality would have to fundamentally change somehow, and I don't know what could do that. It's just it's a shame when you see these little moments where he's like clearly sickened by this stuff. Doesn't want to be a part of this. He like wants to be in his sister's position of right hand to his father. He wants the respect, but this actual life of being in the like one of these men, this is not for him. He doesn't even like it. It's all about the image behind it and not actually about like feeling passion or driven or at home here.
Well, I think that's ultimately the biggest takeaway is that he's just simply not at home here. Mm-hmm. And all of this is very foreign to him. It doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel true. Because it's not. And he's trying to pretend that it is, or like trying to force it to be true. But, you know, you have these moments where you can see that it just definitely doesn't fit who he is as a person. And knowing himself that it doesn't fit is also a source of humiliation and frustration for him, I think. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know? Yeah. So he's walking around, he's watching his men, and he's grossed out by their behavior. And he decides that he's going to teach one of his men a lesson. Because he's, you know, lurching around, and he's drunk, and, you know, just looks terrible.
And apparently, like, part of the rules was that they couldn't get drunk. Like, Theon had said that from the start, so this dude's just, like, flagrantly being a dick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it said something like there was a... What is it? It was said that the Iron Men of old had oft been blood-drunk in battle, so berserk that they felt no pain and feared no foe. But this guy was just common drunk.
Yeah.
So he's going to shoot a bow and arrow and hit this guy, I think, in the hand or something to make him drop his wine. And it's going to look super cool. But the guy moves and ends up taking an arrow in the belly, and Theon has killed this guy.
And he has to just play it off and be like, yeah, that's what you get.
I told y'all, no drunkards and no squabbling over plunder. As if, like, you know, again, like you said, I meant to do that. Mm-hmm. And it tells one of his men to just basically slit this guy's throat because he's dying and it's making a lot of noise.
They start stripping him for parts before he's even dead.
Yep.
Can you imagine you're like amongst your friends, you think, and then somebody shoots you and your friends just turn around and like pick your pocket and take your phone and your wallet?
And
like
you were like 5 seconds ago having a great time, having a drink, and like all of a sudden,
insulting.
So Theon is thinking, okay, well now everybody knows I'm serious. They're going to take me seriously now. But it's not sticking. Like, he's still in his head. Now he goes into this whole thing about his sister and how unfair it is, you know. And what a good job that he's been doing. You know, he planned the attack so well. His foes never had a chance. And meanwhile, she's getting all the glory. She's going to take a castle, you know, and they're going to sing songs for her, and they're all going to forget that he even existed.
Yeah, which like I mean, look, as somebody who craves validation myself in many ways, I can sympathize with the horror of not getting credit. You know, I get it, buddy. I'm right there with you.
Horror.
The horror. From one person to another who just needs it. But also, you're just chasing somebody else's idea. Come up with your own thing. What could Theon... Let's say he doesn't even take something that Robb gives him. He just goes off on his own somewhere. What could he do? He wouldn't be good on his own, though. You made a good point with that.
What could he do to fill the hole in his soul?
Yeah.
There's nothing that can fill that.
Like, I don't even know if I'm trying to imagine his place next to Robb. If he stayed there, would this part of his personality shrink over time? he's still very young, you know? Would he grow to be a better person? It's just hard to know because, like, he has spent most of his life at this point with the Starks, and he's still like this.
Right.
So
well,
I just can't decide, like, what would...
In my imagination, the relationship that Theon has with a King Robb is very different than what he had with, you know, Ned's...
Lordling?
No, with Ned. Like, when Ned...
Oh, with Ned, okay.
When Ned was in charge, I mean, he wasn't king, but, you know, he was like Lord of Winterfell or whatever. When he was in charge, his relationship with Theon, you know, was whatever it was. But it was definitely not anything like mutual respect or camaraderie or anything like that.
Sure.
Right? But if the king is Robb, and Robb treats you well, and treats you with respect, and, like, you know, then that hits different.
Yeah. Okay, I see that. And plus, he's like you said, he needs somebody around to sort of keep him straight. And somebody like Robb believing in him and trusting him. Mm-hmm. And doing it to his face, right. And being like, no, bud, I know you're on my side, and I want you here for all this. Like, I could see that having a major influence on him.
Like, Theon goes to the Iron Islands supposedly to ask his father to support Robb, right? Mm-hmm. And it changes, on the way there, or once he sees his father, and his father's like, oh, you came here to do their bidding, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, pretty much that, I think.
So, it wasn't like he was... Well, I mean, he was fantasizing about being in charge and everything when he was on the ship, when he was talking to that girl, and, you know, how he's going to run everything. But it was going to be like he was going to run everything in league with Robb. Right? And so he doesn't decide to betray them until his father starts being a real piece of shit to him and doesn't give him the welcome that he wanted and shames him. And then he changes, you know, switches his whole game up. And it doesn't take much, from what I remember.
Sort of tragic. Like, you know, again, he is so shitty, and so I'm not trying to, like, cultivate too much sympathy for him, but I definitely have some. It's just frustrating when you see a person who had a lot of potential, and it gets, for a variety of reasons, some within their control and a lot not within their control, it just doesn't wind up going anywhere, and you see what could have been hidden and lurking still. And they're actively fighting against that. They're fighting against their better impulses and better nature. And it's just awful to watch that start to happen. So this is when he goes and finds Dagmar Cleftjaw. I was thinking, if you were like... If somebody was going to choose a physical aspect of you to give you a surname with, because... That's his last name, apparently, is Cleftjaw, because he has a cleft jaw. What would your name be?
I hate this game.
All
what
right,
would your name be?
I don't, like, at first I was like, would it be something about, like, my hair or my attitude? And then I just came to Tasha Big Tits.
I mean...
that was kind of the best I could do.
I feel like a lot of times these kind of monikers that are based on, like, the feature that stands out the most to people, it is often not the thing that you really want people to know you by. True enough. So would it be Tasha Big Ass? So this is why I don't like this game.
Yeah, that's fair. Natasha Double Chin. Don't like that.
Well, now you sound like somebody from The Sopranos.
Oh,
Tasha
God.
Two Chins. Like,
Tasha Two Chins. Fuck. I actually kind of like that. I kept thinking about, there's just so many names in these books. Like, there's a lot of them that are actual surnames that are handed down through the histories of the families. And then there's guys like this, where it's just like, Tormund Giantsbane.
Right, exactly. This description of this guy, though, whew.
Yeah, it sounds brutal.
It really does. I was trying so hard to picture it, and my brain was like, why are you doing this? Why do you want to see this? We're not going to help you see this.
Yeah. And he is like the probably most healthy parental sort of figure that Theon has had.
Yeah.
And he tries to reason with Theon because Theon really just he does that thing where he tries to be like, you're my father's best man, and I think you're wasted on this assignment. And this dude is like, okay, look, let's be honest. You think you're wasted on this assignment. Theon really because this guy says his best man and always have been pride, Theon thought. He is proud. I must use that. His pride will be the key. And I'm just like, oh, sweetie. He really fucking thinks he's got something here.
This guy's like, you've been away too long. First of all, I'm not anymore. When Theon tells him, when he first walks up to the guy, and the guy is talking about, the other people that they fought and how they sang bravely and everything. He says, how many of our men are lost? And Theon just says, Todrick, I killed him for getting drunk. And his reply is, some men are born to be killed.
Rough. No God tears damn. For Todrick. Nobody gives a shit.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's rough, man.
But yeah, so Theon is gonna just flatter this guy to death, and he'll be putty in his hands, is what Theon thinks. And Dagmar is not falling for the bullshit, but he is intrigued.
There's this moment here that I love so much, where he says, I know you too well. I saw you take your first step. Tis not me who feels wasted. By rights, I should have my sister's command, he admitted, uncomfortably aware of how peevish that sounded. What a beautiful little sentence.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that happen where you're like, talk and you hear yourself?
Yeah.
And you're suddenly like, oh, God.
Yep.
I've had that happen a few times. There was a couple times specifically with like meeting patrons and being like around them but talking to Owen, and I like suddenly saw myself through their eyes, like at a convention or our trip to Florida, and I was suddenly like, I think I look super bitchy right now. And then I had to take a step and be like, because I am super bitchy right now? It might be because I am being super bitchy. Maybe I need to reel that in a little bit. But there's nothing quite like a moment of clarity where you really hear yourself or see yourself and you're suddenly like, ew.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't like this.
Those are always very unpleasant but deeply necessary moments. Dagmar tells Theon that he is taking all of this way too hard, way too personally even. And it's like, look, your father doesn't know you. And your sister has been here the whole time. Not only does he rely on her, but she always comes through for him.
Yeah.
Why would he suddenly switch up? And Theon's response is, well, the Starks knew my words. Which, sir...
What are you doing?
That is not going to... It's not the flex you think it is. Like, know your audience. But, again, Theon is just carrying a lot of baggage and I don't know, like you said earlier, desperate for validation. He's bragging about being the Blackfish's picked scouts, that he was in the first wave of the Whispering Wood, that he was this close to almost fighting the Kingslayer himself.
It's just all, like, again, you like, step back and look at yourself, bruh. All you're doing is like listing a bunch of shit like it's a resume, trying to like, it's pitiful.
Dagmar says,
you're not gonna get
why are you
respect from this.
Like, why are you telling me? He's like, I know who you are. I know you're not a coward. I was the first person that gave you a sword. Like, why are you trying to convince me how brave and worthy you are? Like, I'm not the one. And then we have a moment where Theon straight up says, when Dagmar says, I know you're no craven, he goes, does my father.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Pitiful.
And Dagmar seems like sad. The description is that it looks like he bit into something he didn't like the taste of. And he's trying to explain to Theon that, like, it's just that, you know, you were with the Starks for a long time, and you're a friend with, you know, he calls him the boy wolf. And Theon lashes out, you know, I'm not a Stark, but thinks to himself immediately, well, Ned made sure of that. You know, it's just, it's being in his head is a real trip. And I'm glad we don't get these chapters often.
Agreed, yeah.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's frustrating. It's like pitiful and infuriating. It is, Theon is a whole lot.
Yeah. Yeah, he's trying to just figure out how to, like, be an impressive man. And depending on who he's around, that changes. Yeah. And he doesn't know what is impressive to himself.
Yeah, he's trying to figure out how to be. And doesn't, like the sentence just stops there. Because he doesn't know who he's trying to be. He doesn't know who he's supposed to be. He doesn't know who he's trying to be. Yeah, I guess that's why someone like him... I mean, if you think about the thing with Reek, you know, I guess I mean, like, I don't know how bad it is in the book, but, you know, on the show it's pretty bad. I think when I was watching the show, it felt very much like that could happen to anybody. And with that kind of treatment, that kind of torture, anybody would end up being a Reek.
I agree with that.
Right? And I think that that's true, but I also don't think it's an accident that it ends up being Theon.
I would agree with that also. And I will hazard an assertion that it's worse in the book.
Yeah. As soon as I said it, I knew the answer.
Yeah.
But a girl can hope. She can wish. She can dream.
There's just some shit you can't do on TV. But yeah, so he eventually, like, sort of begins to, like, work his way into Dagmar's mind here. And finally he's like, all right, so how would this work? And he says, you know, what would my part be? To strike terror into the heart of the foe as only one of your name could do. You'll take the great part of our force and march on Torrhen Square. Helm Tallheart took his best men south, and Benfred died here with their sons. His uncle Leopold will remain with some small garrison, and then if I had been able to question Benfred, I would know just how small. Again, just... If you could have taken a stand here and been like, I'm going to keep questioning him and then I'll kill him. But he caves immediately, even though his judgment on that was actually good. Yep. There's just, I just want to strangle him. I just want to slap and shake you. And Cleftjaw's like, all right, well, how are we supposed to take the place because it's made of stone? You'll camp outside their walls and set to building catapults and siege engines.
He's like, whoa.
Right?
We don't do that. We're not just throwing rocks at people. And Theon is like, well, first of all, they won't know that. They're going to see you out there looking like you're about to, plan a siege. They're going to close their gates and, be prepared to wait you out.
Yeah.
And you'll never have to actually engage with them. You won't actually have to use the catapults or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and he's like, all right, so what's... And basically Theon's like, well, the point is we got to get them to send for help. And then we'll have Sir Roderick taking the greater part of his force out of Winterfell, the few that remain, to, ride to the aid of a bannerman who's under attack. Mm-hmm. And Dagmar doesn't get it still. Yeah. He's like, well, he'll bring way more guys than I've got. And Theon's like, well, yeah. But out of Winterfell. And that is the end of that chapter.
Yeah, he just... And it's the way it ends, Dagmar just being like, you're going to send us to a battle we can't win. Mm-hmm. And all Theon says is it's not turn square, I mean a take. But that does not answer what these people were supposed to do when Sir Roderick shows up. Like, they're just going to
it does not.
They're just going to be sitting there. So
he's just like, well, I'm just sacrificing you as the pawn you are. But we'll just not talk about that part.
And so I'm just like, I can't imagine Dagmar's face. Like, I was reading this, like, is this Theon? Are you supposed to say that inside? Like, did you really say that? Like, how he had all the italics when
he said the quiet part out loud.
So, yeah, I'm super curious how he recovers and convinces Dagmar, like, no, you guys are going to totally be fine, I promise. It's all going to work out.
So that is the end of the chapter, man.
Yeah.
It's you have any additional comments, questions, theories? Suggestions?
No. I don't know how long it will be before we come... Oh, that's what I was looking for. How long it'll be before we make it back to King's Landing, but I am just dying to know what Cersei's up to. So I hope we get back there sooner than later. What?
I just there are some things that I do know what's coming, and it's not even like I'm dreading them. It's just more like, ugh, that kind of attitude. You know what I mean? But anyway, I'm going to say hi to new patrons.
All right.
This week we've got Angela Anderson, Lydia, E.J. Baker, Ryan Swart, Brett Alexander, the Crazy Cat Writer, and Naveen Hamoud. So welcome to all of you. Thank you all very, very much for becoming patrons. I appreciate you all so much. Make sure that you join the Discord if you get the chance. Lots of chit-chat on there and different channels for spoilers and without spoilers. And also a very active Animal Crossing channel, if you're interested in that. As somebody who's just started playing again, I am very interested. But yeah, I really appreciate the community. I've been doing this like sort of weekly coaching session with somebody from Patreon, and because I'm part of their ambassador program, and I am struck by how unusually great my community is. Like, not to say that other people's aren't good, but the stories that I hear from them, that's just not shit I'm dealing with. And I think it's because my people just are like of a higher caliber. So thank you guys for being of a higher caliber and not making me deal with some of that drama, because I don't miss it. And I wouldn't like it. It sounds highly stressful.
I was going to say, it sounds terrible.
Yeah. So just, y'all are great. And I appreciate you all. Except for that one. You know who you are. I think to put the fear of God in him. All right, guys. Well, we will be seeing you next week with 2 more chapters. And until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Baron and Lannisters.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.